that we have arrived, let's just take a collective deep breath together and sit back and relax in your seat of comfort and get ready for this Sunday afternoon Books and Brunch with BYTA. So all together, collective breath, deep breath in and let it out through your mouth. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jana Long, Executive Director of Black Yoga Teachers Alliance. And as I said before, welcome to this Sunday afternoon of Books and Brunch with BYTA. This has been an amazing year for this program. We've introduced many of the books by Black yogis and teachers who I think most of them are members of our organization. And this is our final event this year, but stay tuned. We have a fantastic lineup of authors and teachers for 2023, and we're getting better at doing this as we go along. I've got to give a shout out to our associate producer, Galanda Brooker, and the BYTA art director, Lorenzo Wilkins. They're the backbone of this production. Books and Brunch with BYTA is produced by members. They volunteer, select the author, read the book, curate the questions, and produce this event for our members, our friends, and supporters. This year we had, from BYTA, we had Dr. Lucretia Creedai, Vicey Moran, Saida Hafiz, and authors. Saida was also an author as well as a producer. Octavia Rahim, and editor Pamela Ayo Yatunde. So that brings me to today's event and our producer and host of this Books and Brunch with BYTA, Tamara Kress. Now I'm gonna have to look down a little bit and just read a little about Tam. Tamara is a trauma-informed yoga and meditation teacher, life coach, speech language therapist, and she's a nomadic yoga teacher who brings mindfulness-based practices to community spaces, including schools, churches, support groups, community centers, football fields, and I'm gonna have to ask her about that one, family reunions, and I'm sure she's all over the place. Her teachings help people to connect to their inner wisdom and to each other through movement, stillness, and breath. Tamara also facilitates the practice of Yoga Nidra, and she understands the transformative power of rest, joy, community, and compassion to renew, recharge, and restore us. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Tamara, who will introduce us to our special guest today. Hi, Tam.
Hey, Jana. We'll have to talk about that football field. Yes. You know, our culture and community, we could do anything, anywhere. So thank you, Jana, for the lovely introduction. Welcome, everyone, to Books and Brunch with BYTA. And just a little note up front, whatever cooties are going around, they have caught me, and this is what healing sounds like. So we're just gonna call this my Toni Braxton voice. I am so thrilled to be here with all of you. And how yummy and necessary is it that we talk about soul and healing for our collective communities at a time like this. So we're going to be diving into some nooks and crannies dealing with soul and healing with author Phyllis Jeffers-Coly. Phyllis is a self-proclaimed 1990s hip hop elder mentor. Like, put that up front, come through, Phyllis. She's also co-founder, I see it, co-founder and co-owner of Diasporic Soul, offering heritage and healing travel experience to Senegal, West Africa for Black people. Phyllis is also the author of a very important article called When Grandma Comes to Visit, exploring how communion with our ancestors and nature deepen our capacity for healing, restoration, resilience, and resistance. Phyllis's roots are in North Carolina. Raise it up, North Carolina. I know you're in the house. She also attended North Carolina Central University. Yeah, I see you. I saw that, Phyllis. She's also here to let us know how we can continue to find ways to heal through culture, through our soul, and contemplative practices. Welcome, the author of today's featured book, We Got Soul, We Can Heal, Phyllis Jeffers-Coly, AKA Tata Phyllis, AKA Sweet Potato.
Thank you, Tam, very much. I'm honored to be here. And thank you to everyone who's attending. I recognize a lot of faces. If you've had a chance to read the book, you know, one of the faces that excites me the most is Dr. Gail Parker's face. So I'm honored that such an esteemed elder, mentor, and teacher of the Black yoga and broader yoga community is here with us today. So thank you so much, Tam. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Phyllis. Hey, Phyllis.
Yes.
What you eating? Because this is Books and Brunch with BYTA.
Well, is it okay if I read what I'm eating? Can I do that? Or is
Whatever you
it
want.
too soon?
Okay.
Okay. So I'm eating Chebu metaphorically. And what that means is, hold on, I'm going to turn to the right page. As some of you know, there's 2 chapters on Chebu. That's how important Chebu is. Chebu, and if you want to, so I taught English for a long time. I majored in literature at North Carolina Central University. And so I'm on page 36. If you want to follow along in the hymnal or the text, that's up to you. So what am I eating in this space with BYTA today? Chebu is Senegal's national dish. To simply refer to it as fish and rice truly does a major disservice to it. It's so much more than that, so much more. First of all, there's more than one variety. There's the red, the white, and the jaga. Each type is unique in the subtle ways it differs from the others. Love and affection found in the hands that knead dough, shuck peas, and chop onions are in Chebu. It is food where the sister or brother cooking it is clearly extending themselves for the well-being of those he or she are cooking for. Chebu is soul food. So I'm feeding myself with soul food. And my favorite of the 3, I don't know. I like the white because it has mango sauce in the summertime. And I love the jaga just because it has just this unique flavor with fish meatballs on top. So theoretically, metaphorically, I'm eating Chebu Tam.
Thank you, Phyllis.
You're welcome.
And Chebu is not just a dish, it's also a way of being, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
It's the way that we get to come together around this communal table. And since we're at BYTA's communal table, if all of our BYTA participants can share in the chat what you eating. Even if you're not eating it now and you might eat it later, I see Deja has already put it in that she's eating banana cinnamon oatmeal pancakes. I see some veggie chips. Yeah. Oh, wait, Saida, I have my soup too. I have a little healing soup over here. Yeah, mac and cheese coming through in the chat. Scrimp, somebody wrote shrimp, but I know what you meant. Some granola. Yeah, as we're sitting around this communal table, keep it coming in. chickpeas, curry. When we eat together and come around this communal table, you talk about that as soul too, as how we get to be together in this space. So I appreciate all the responses coming in. And I want to also pull from one other part of your book, Phyllis, when we deal with soul. At the end of many chapters, you put questions. So I want to share a question now, nothing for us to answer now, but something to put in our back pockets. Kind of like we can't talk about soul without talking about the 1970s, where they have phrases like jive turkey and fashion like bell-bottom pants. So this is a question to put in the back of your bell-bottom pant pocket, okay? So the question is, I'll say it and put it in the chat. Feel free to screenshot it or write it down, but it's for you to take away for later. How will you intentionally create space and time where you slow down and sit with others over food that is made with love that can feed your soul? And I'm going to follow Phyllis's hint and tell you guys that's on page 59 in the book. I heard English teacher come out in you. So
Yes, ma'am. That's
in the chat. Put that in your back pocket for later, something to think about, and remembering that we are at in BYTA's dining room at their communal table. So maybe Phyllis, you could tell us some about what does We Got Soul, We Can Heal do with BYTA? How does it relate to BYTA's mission?
Well, I'll talk a little bit about the vision of BYTA, and this particularly the word that resonates with me is this idea of liberation. And we got soul, we can heal. It's tied to this notion that yoga as a practice is tied to Black liberation work. A lot of times we use terminology like Black liberation struggle. But when we think about healing and restoration and its relationship to Black liberation, I think struggle, it doesn't muddy the water, but it makes it seem negative. And it's not always a struggle. There's joy. As they say, since it's Sunday, joy comes in the morning. And so this work that we do tied to Black liberation is connected to yoga and this idea that part of our healing and restoration work is restoring that connection and or deepening that connection, depending on where you are in your life cycle, where you are in your practice, deepening this connection to our true and authentic selves. And I want to be clear that there is no monolithically Black culture, right? So when we talk about soul, we are talking about it as a transformative healing resources that reflects the sensibilities, cultural sensibilities of the diaspora. So what that looks like varies. Who we get to be authentically varies. But we know that the liberation work that BYTA names in his vision, or that there's a question that I raise in the final chapter that I attribute to one of my mentors, Dr. Ron Walters, who was at one point at Howard and subsequently at Maryland. His, the question he used to ask when he was on the earth, and the question that stays with me is, what does this have to do with the liberation of Black people? And BYTA has made it clear that their work is tied to the liberation of Black folks. And it's not always about protests. In some ways, that liberation work is tied to our healing and restoration. And the protest is designed to create institutions. The resistance that you see outwardly is designed to create spaces where we can do healing and restoration, where we can be well, where we can experience joy without feeling unsafe or uncertain of where we are.
So I'm hearing you talk about the liberation of Black people and creating those spaces. And you seem to have created one of those spaces, you and your husband, Eddie, with Diasporic Soul. Raise up, raise up.
Raise up.
Yeah, I see you. So following in your elders' footsteps, asking that question, what does Diasporic Soul have to do with the liberation of Black people?
So Diasporic Soul is a heritage and healing organization. In our work, we integrate culture, soul, in its various iterations, that I sort of lay out in the opening chapter of the text, what is soul? And then you get to see more in-depth explanations and examples and illustrations of how soul moves, how it sounds, how it feels, how it looks. So we integrate our cultures, plural, much of which is, of course, Black American culture, and that in and of itself is not a monolith, but certainly celebrating and revering a certain set of heritage narratives, a certain set of historical narratives, integrating that soul and or cultures with contemplative practices like ritual that's culturally specific. Much of our ritual is informed by what happens in the Black Atlantic, again, plural, but certainly informed by Senegal itself because that's the land that we're on. We're in a community of Serer folks, so that's reflected. Ritual, restorative yoga. We of course consider the other limbs of yoga and other types of practices, but following the guidance of Dr. Parker in 2017 at I Am Yoga training around restorative yoga and race-based stress and trauma, it just simply affirmed that for me as a practitioner and as a teacher, that restorative yoga is the primary asana practice for us because it does allow us to be still when we're constantly high effort coping. So we integrate soul and culture and contemplative practices for Black folks through retreats and through other experiences, primarily in Senegal, but not exclusively.
Yeah. And reading the book, I saw quite a few of the students' testimonies about coming into these experiences. And one of the
Yes.
students said, I felt at home in a place I've never been before, referring to coming to Senegal. And another one shared, yeah, being held while crying was dope and needed, right? And as you
Yes.
talk about those restorative practices that you talk about in the book, We Got Soul, We Can Heal, tell us a little about the book. Like what happened? What is We Got Soul, We Can Heal? What is the book about?
Um, the book is about what I just named,
Mhm.
which is, this idea that Sharon Harrell offers in a really robust article in the Journal of Contemplative Inquiry about soul being this transformative resource that reflects the sensibilities of the African diaspora. And so I play around with what she initially lays out, and offer chapters that speak to some of the elements of soul that she names, and of course bring in some of the thinking of folks like Dr. Parker, Resma Minikam as really the two, when you look at 17, 18, and what happened in 16 in Ferguson, they are really the preeminent and first book-length voices around race-based stress and trauma. So the book is so when we talk about, well, what are we healing? Or what are we offering resources for one's healing as a Black person functioning in a Black body? Specifically, we're naming the dis-ease and the disease as race-based stress and trauma. So that's when you say, well, what about the book? Well, what are we healing? Because we experience all sorts of stress and we experience all sorts of trauma, but that is the primary trauma. And not that we can like neatly succinctly cut it out. But when you talk about those students who I've served, a large number of them are PWI students, although not exclusively, right? And so their experience is that they have not felt at home in their Black bodies. They have not ever learned how to walk with a swagger unapologetically, and to see themselves and to see their families and to see their to be able to extend grace to themselves, be able to extend grace to their family and their communities, for what they might see as lack because they haven't seen, or that it hasn't been named for them, or they haven't sensed or had an embodied experience with creativity and resourcefulness and seeing Black beauty everywhere because that's not the environment they've been in. So I offer culture, I offer contemplative practices in a blending, in an integrated way, in a dance, in a mixture, in a melange, in a Creole, in a fusion, uh, since we doing food, in a gumbo, in a chebujan, on a communal plate for people to consider, okay, how might this help me feel more centered, feel more grounded, feel more rooted, feel more balanced, and feel more connected, not only to my authentic self, but connected to that communal plate, connected to the collective, and this sense of interdependence.
And so you mentioned that many of the students you work with who you're helping to feel centered and grounded and supported are from PWI. Can you share with us what's PWI?
Oh, predominantly white institution.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Versus
Yeah.
HBCUs, historically Black colleges, universities, like my alma mater.
Yeah. I knew that was coming in. I was waiting for it.
Sorry, I just can't help it. I'm in North Carolina. That's how it goes around here.
And one of the things you shared was fostering the ability to help people offer grace to their families.
Mhm.
What does that look like for you? Do you have any personal experience around needing to offer grace to your family?
Yeah. Um, so in chapter 2, I lay out and set up some of Dr. Parker's thinking, some of Resmaa Menakem's thinking around, what do we mean by race-based stress and trauma? Um, what do we mean when we talk about John Henryism and high effort coping? So I lay that out and I use my father as the narrative, the story around what that looks like for him as a brother in his 70s, raised in North Carolina during the Jim Crow era, in what was a pretty rural part of what is now Greensboro, but at the time was Guilford County. Um, and then later in the chapter on self-love, where I really get into the value of my historically Black college experience at NCCU, I name shame and self-loathing as part of the dis-ease and part of the areas that need to get addressed. So there's the physiological impact of race-based stress and trauma on the body. And I think for a lot of people, it's tangible. We can say diabetes, we can say hypertension, we can talk about heart disease because we have. But shame and self-loathing are more uncomfortable because it requires a deeper level of svataya, right? Like you have to look at why do I see my father in this particular way? Am I ashamed of my dad? And so for a long time, I didn't understand that my father's inability to keep his promises was not because he was a broken human being or because he was insensitive or lacking in some way. There were systemic pieces that impacted his capacity to say yes or no, or to keep a promise, or to let's just be clear, keep the lights on, to figure out how to um, repair the HVAC system in the house when the heat went out, when the furnace broke in our childhood. So for me, the forgiveness and the extension of grace began when I became an adult, but also deepened as I began to understand race-based stress and trauma and practice yoga, that I needed to give those things to my father. And even now, looking back at his father and his mother and their wounds and their pain and the way in which they numbed out with alcohol, and my own recovery and sobriety journey. Like I also have to extend myself grace because operating at a HBCU and wanting to protect and fight for and resist the apparatus, the academy burnt me out, and I needed to numb out too. So this idea of forgiveness and race-based stress and trauma, when we talk about healing and self-awareness, they go together, because you have to figure out, well, what am I ashamed of? What am I experiencing guilt and remorse? What's that connected to? And can I offer some healing to my family? Not just those, okay, not just the ones here, but what do I get to give my grandfather and my grandmother who were struggling with alcohol? But then what do I get to give my very respectable, educated mama's daddy and mama? What do they need in terms of healing and forgiveness and navigating shame, so that they can have some greater peace in the afterlife, right?
Yeah.
I'll be quiet. That's a lot, but
And
that's
it's
huge.
it's helping us take it in, like marinate with it for a minute, right? You mentioned the
Yeah.
term swadhyaya, just that concept of studying ourselves, right?
Yes.
Which means studying
Yes.
our heritage, our lineage. So if there's anybody who can offer like a me too understanding with Phyllis, if there's somebody in our family, ourselves, and our heritage that we want to offer some grace and forgiveness, just put any emoji in the chat, whether it's a heart, a thumbs up, a pound, like if this conversation is resonating with you, right? Because that's
Mhm.
us. There we
Mhm.
go. Come through, community, because you're not alone. This is what we're all here for. And you mentioned this in your book about being part of a collective community to bring this
Mhm.
healing and love around. So I mentioned it earlier, but I'll mention it again because you talked about self-study. You offer many ways and questions in the book on how to look at ourselves, and to think about the things we need to study. And I do want to pause for a minute and share this one, because you're mentioning it now, and it's sometimes hard for us to see ourselves. You mentioned a quote by Resmaa Menaker, and I'm not going to say the quote, but the sentiment of it of, how do we know what trauma looks like in our body? So if you remember it, feel free to share it. But it was saying, like, in a person, it looks like personality. In a family, looks like family traits. And in the people, it looks like culture. Because how else would we know? We usually just say, that's just who I am. So we
Mhm.
can use that self-study to say, oh, what are those things I'm saying? That's just who I am, and explore that.
Right. What is a coping mechanism?
Yeah.
So high effort coping, John Henryism, is a coping mechanism, right? So we have decided that grinding, hustling is part of i- broadly Black American culture. More specifically, both in the US and globally, it's all a part of hip hop narrative, right? Like whether you're Mary J. Blige or um Kendrick Lamar, there's a grind mentality, right? So just trying to get a little continuum there from Mary to Kendrick. Um, there's this idea that that's the only way. It's the culture, as if it was baked in from the moment. But as somebody that lives on the continent in a particular country, in two or three different sort of ethnic communities within that country, do we work? Yes, but is the grind and the hustle as it's been given to us in terms of racial capitalism, is that really the root? And it's really not. It's really not the root. It's how we have survived, right? To get at what Resmaa and Dr. Parker speak to as coping strategies or coping mechanisms in response to the race-based stress and trauma. Yeah.
Yeah. So you share lots of healing things to help us with the race-based stress and trauma. How does
Hmm.
nature fit into that healing?
Okay.
Look at that
Um,
smile on your
well,
face.
because I wanted, okay, so I wanted to go to Starbucks this morning, and I couldn't go in my parents' room and get anybody's car keys. because it was like 6:30 in the morning in New Bern. So I ended up making the last bit of lavazza in the coffee pot and going out on the deck and ultimately walking around and seeing these pops of color. A very huge peony tree in somebody's yard, somebody else's holly tree having burst in the red berries, and finally realizing since I got here in September that I'm learning that there are seeds and berries and flowers and how they work. Because as much as I spent time outdoors, and I spend the whole chapter on nature, I grew up outdoors. Um, Being outdoors and being in nature mindfully or with intention and seeing what's there, it has been a part of my healing journey. Um, Understanding, one, going back to eldership and ancestors, understanding that my grandmother in particular, albeit not exclusively, communicates with me through nature. In the article, I talk about these white wispy whirly things that show up in the house, and there's no milkweed anywhere near my house. Okay, I don't know where they came from. I associate them with her communicating, and many of us understand cardinals or other red birds to be vehicles for ancestor communication. So nature in one way is spirit, right? Like it's divine, it's sacred. So the spirit realm, those divine ones like our ancestors, can speak to us through nature. And then there's just the capacity of the magnitude and the massiveness of her to hold all that we are. So, we did this thing at Kripalu with Maya and Keisha, and just you can give it to the rock, and the rock can carry it and take it. The mommy water can carry it and take it. You can find your posture, whether it's just a seat or a specific asana on a tree with the tree, and the tree can hold it. And what I understand about our indigenous practices, and again, I'm speaking specifically to what I've been introduced to in Senegal, um, with a sense and an understanding that these ideas and beliefs are replicated globally, is this idea that, so the word for tree is grop, and grop means medicine and wolof. So everything in nature is healing. When I came in and I said, "Oh, I had to get this thing," it's something from nature in my little bag, and it's helping me speak hopefully clearly and in some way that resonates with folks, right? Or if you come to me and Eddie, we're gonna take you to the ocean. We're gonna take you to mommy water, and we're gonna clear you. We're gonna cleanse you. We're gonna wash it off of you. So nature in all of its elements and all of its ways is here for us if we recognize that we are nature and we're deeply and profoundly connected to it.
Yeah, right. Deeply and profound. Right, it does make you just want to. That's your grandma coming through, right?
Yeah.
And as
Yeah.
we have our communal altar, one being here, your grandma's here. Is there the birds? Real close. I'll
Yes.
bring it a little bit closer. Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She
There we
loved
go.
birds.
There the birds on the altar. And so now we have our BYTA community altar honoring spirit, honoring nature. And I just like to take a moment in our chat for everybody to bring something to our community altar, because this is what the book is about, living in these experiences in an embodied way. So add a who and a what. Who are you adding to the altar? And what are you adding for them? So Phyllis, you just mentioned your grandma with the birds, right? That's how you know grandma's there. I'm adding stockings. My great grandmother used to wear them and tie them right below her knee. So I'm putting my great grandmother on the altar. So remember to add your who and your what. My great grandmother and her stockings. Phyllis, are you sticking with your grandma, or do you have anybody else you want to add?
Well, this morning I picked up 7 pecans.
Okay.
So my pecans will go to the collective ancestral altar when I return to Senegal. And they're indicative of being here in North Carolina this time of year, the pecans.
And Gina's bringing in hot sauce for her great aunt Gwen. See lots coming in. Her papa, Sharika's papa, has a good plate of food on it. Where we need some food on those altars. We have a maternal grandma, Nicole, loves fig Newtons. Oh, we're some eating people up in here. Peppermints for mom, a wooden elephant for Aunt Charlene. Everyone just put all this love on the altar. Spirit, nature is all here for us. Curry for her mom. There's curry in my soup. Yeah. And when Phyllis returns with the 7 pecans to the altar. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So we've been talking a lot about call out a few, Phyllis. I see you're reading them. You read a few.
Oh, I was struck by cotton because it's just such an interesting part of our collective narrative. Okra, I put okra on my altar a lot. I see tobacco in a couple. I saw a feather earlier. Yeah, corn pudding, tea cakes. Yeah, it's good to feed them.
And you also mentioned that having an altar is another way to honor our
Yes,
ancestors.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it can move. You can create one wherever you go. Like I'm actually, my grandmother's sewing table is behind me that my sister inherited. And this is my sister's iteration of an altar. So while I'm at her house, I add things to this altar. And then at my parents', I created a new altar in front of the fireplace that I fed and incorporated into ritual during my time at their house. So
Yeah. So we've been talking about the practices of liberation for Black people that tie in diasporic soul, as well as the book We Got Soul We Can Heal. But I feel like you need to take us back a little bit to the diasporic romance that kind of,
oh Lord, okay.
Yeah, that kind of birth
Okay.
diasporic soul, and you living in West Africa. So tell us a little bit about your business partner, AKA Hubby Eddie, AKA Professor Onion Sauce.
Can I read a little? Is that okay?
Do you,
And
boo?
I'm just okay. And I'm gonna jump around, so I won't okay, I'm gonna start on page 37 and then I'm gonna go backwards a little bit. So Eddie and I met in July 2003. I'm at the bottom of page 37, final paragraph. And we lived apart for 2 years until I eventually moved to Cincinnati in 2005. During that period, we both committed ourselves to seeing fully. He saw me flourishing as a creative, intelligent Black female who was a proud HBCU grad who loved teaching at a large community college with a very diverse student population, living alone in a city that felt like home, a city with so much soul. And Deja and some other people know some of that soul is gone now. And in Cincinnati, on my visits, I saw him clearly as a leader who, in spite of living in a city that seemed to have little, if any, love for Black people, extended themselves for members of the Senegalese immigrant community throughout the area, including the ones who lived in the apartment community complex in the same side of town where Eddie lives, and other folks for that matter. He was a highly respected community leader who people trusted and relied on as they navigated being in the US in racially and culturally contested spaces. But as much as I thought I saw him back then during our long distance courtship, sorry. And when I moved to Cincinnati, it is now It's now living in Senegal that I've come to best appreciate, excuse me, and fully see who my husband truly is. Now I understand his roots. I see them very clearly. They run they run deep like the roots of our beloved baobab tree. Um, and then I'm gonna go back. Thank you all for accommodating my tears. Let me be clear. At some point it hit me. Let's go. Let's move. Let's move to Senegal and live there. I had dreamt at some point early on in our relationship that Eddie and I would open a cafe in the desert. And while we are not technically in the desert, y'all have to talk to climate change about that. The Sahel region where we live is not lush and green most of the year. If you sit in our cafe, beyond the flowers and the foliage, you will see sand, which invokes the sense that you are in the desert, especially during the time of the year when the wind blows it around like snowflakes or dry fall leaves. So we decided to follow our dreams and open a cafe. And this is the last little piece, page 6 in the preface. Thank God I have tissue. Lord have mercy. We got soul, we can heal reflects what my husband Eddie Coley knows, his wisdom, his expertise, his lived experience as a diasporic soul who hails from Senegal, West Africa, and who has lived as a Black man in both France and the United States. We got soul, we can heal reflects the ways that he loves, the way he radiates a deep, quiet, unwavering, stabilizing, grounding, anchoring, and sometimes fiery, stern care and compassion that makes me and the people who come to us feel safe, secure, and like we belong in a place that we know in our spirits to be home. That's my summer jukka.
Oh, thank you, Phyllis. Tears
Thank
are the
you.
rivers of life. Thank you for allowing them to flow with us in a space where you clearly felt safe to do that at the heart and the
Yes.
root of your book. Yeah. Did you see you and your boo on the screen? Did you see that
I
throwback
did, but
photo?
I couldn't look. I couldn't look because that would have made it worse. Thank you, Tam, for asking that question. I
Mm.
tried to start every conversation about the book during my time here, since he's physically in Senegal and I'm physically here, with an image or an acknowledgement of this, because I'm when we talk about spirit, I'm so clear that spirit, the divine ones, his ancestors, my ancestors, we were brought together in a very, very particular and unique way. So I don't take that for granted, even though at some point, as is covered in one of those Chebuchin chapters, I did.
And you know, that sound like what came up in your heart because you were mentioning seeing Eddie fully when you're in West Africa is part of that blossoming of your love and diasporic soul. So that
Yes, absolutely.
letting us know that that's belonging and we all get to be seen fully and see each other fully. So thank you,
Yes.
Eddie. He's feeling us now. He's feeling us. So Phyllis, the title of your book, keeping it with the soul of the love between you and Eddie that you're extending into the book, you use the word soul a lot. And I want to take this moment between using soul to help us heal, to remember that music is healing, that music is soul. So I do want to I want to name a few artists, and I want you to tell us what do they have to do with soul and healing. And this is going to be a little fast. We only have a couple of minutes, okay? Because I know you love these artists. You might not know what I'm going to say, but yeah,
Lightning
I feel like it's
round!
top five.
Lightning
Lightning round.
round!
Jill Scott.
There's a lot of love, like Who is Jill Scott, track number 1, and either 6 or 8. And I had this DJ mix them together. There's a lot of love here. And that's what you're going to feel, hopefully in the book. And certainly when you come to Senegal and sit with Eddie and I, for sure.
Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's his own lecture. But let me just say, in the book, I put him in the chapter with my dad because he has a song called DNA on Damn that really names this back and forth between the trauma, the hurt, the pain, the wounds, and healing. And he actually names, I don't think he names yoga, but he does name one or more of the limbs. I know he names meditation. But this new album, y'all, it's he should have named the album Sfat Yaya for real. He should have named this fight. I mean, he's just really, it's a very powerful album. And there is this one track where he actually questions this idea of what Resma mentions is this idea of you cannot see that our coping mechanisms, some of which have hurt, where we hurt each other, he refuses. He's like, that's not culture. That's something else. So, okay, that's an hour, Kendrick Lamar.
And that's somebody else's song too that you mentioned. I see it in the chat. Sharika's like, that's my song. Sinabu Sang. What can she tell?
Sinabu say she does two things that get named in the text, and she just, again, this divineness of all of the order of things. This is how you know you're on the right track. If you're not sure, the divine ones will tell you you're on the right track. They'll drop a song that just totally fits what you're doing. So Sinabu say drops the song about her experience. She's Gambian and European mixed, and she doesn't go to the Gambia. That's its own conversation. She comes to Dakar, she comes to Senegal, and she talks about how healing and restorative it is. The name of the song, though, so the song gets named in the context of seeing oneself as Black, bold, beautiful, another discussion in the text with the Renaissance Monument. But also the name of the song is Breathe. And so I use her and Layla Hathaway also has a track called Breathe, as does Jill Scott, to open a conversation about pranayama practice in the yoga chapter. Sinabu, lightning round.
Yeah. Just breathe, right? We open with breath, and it's a reminder that's all we need to do is breathe. Yes. And I got to wrap this round up, but I cannot go without bringing up Burna Boy.
Look, all Burna Boy wants y'all to remember is that before you was anything else, you's African. That's all I got on Burna Boy. That's the track called Spiritual by Burna Boy.
Yeah. Thank you for playing that round. I could feel like those artists really were resonating in you, as music does with all of us. So we all can think about what music resonates with us, that reminds us that we have soul and we can heal. So as we come to the end of our time together, we're not done quite yet, but as we think about wrapping up, I want us to think about, and not just you, Phyllis, and me, but all of us, right? It's that time at the end of a dinner where we make our to-go plates. So everybody's gonna make their to-go plate, where you're gonna share with us, what are you taking away? What fed your soul during this time together? So maybe you can put that in the chat, write it in your journal, but what are you gonna take away from our time together in your to-go plate? And as people are putting that in the chat, I just wanted to share my takeaways from your book. You mentioned Eddie's mom, and that she was saying, and I'm not going to quote, but the feeling is, take care of each other, extend ourselves for the well-being of others, and we'll be taken care of. So that's my to-go plate. Phyllis, if you don't mind reading some of the folks' to-go plates that are in the chat, what are they taking away?
Oh, a new playlist. I am African, indeed. Love, intention, tears, and release. Ooh, your container's full. But you get at least 3 sections in a good one. Homemade bread, nourishment, more soul family, breathing, ancestral connections. Yep.
Yeah.
Ties from the past impact you more than you can imagine. Time and nature. Yoga is essential to my healing. That's been affirmed. That's in the to-go box. We are one. I don't know what Teams is, but it lets me know I have soul. More communal gatherings and rituals with my family. Communal love. Opening an ancestral space. More ancestral. Yes, I know it's more for you. It's not. Yes, not new for you. More ancestral spaces in my home. Yoga is essential to our healing as Black folks. Yes.
That part.
Yeah. Get your pecans for your mama. Yes. And put them on the altar. Sit on the couch and read and sleep and eat and let what shows up show up. I like the idea of having an altar. I'm taking that with me, that I can take one multiple places.
Yeah.
So
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Phyllis, for sharing that. And as we work on your to-go plate, Phyllis, what are you taking?
it's crazy, but the thing that came up for me was black eyed peas. So I'm literally thinking about food. But community, I am been very moved by folks like you and our I Am Yoga cohort, some of who are here, including our teacher Candace. Definitely taking more community back, reminded how critical it is for my well-being, how critical it is for our collective well-being. Absolutely community, deepening that and nurturing that, investing time and energy in that. That's absolutely going with me
Oh,
in my
Phyllis,
luggage.
in your luggage.
In my luggage.
And how can people take a piece of you with them? How can they connect with you beyond this experience?
Folks can visit us. We're on Instagram and Facebook as Diasport. So
Pick it up, hold it up,
and
hold it up.
hold it up, Diasport. So the book is available from the publisher as McFarland Books, as well as on Amazon. I have a few more copies available that can be signed, sealed, and delivered. For music, y'all can name that tune and the artist. Yes, that's Stevie Wonder. I have a few more copies that I can mail out before I leave. If you want to order on Sulasani18 at Cash App, it's in your emails from BYTA. It's also available on my Instagram. And on Instagram is a link tree that takes you to the website. The website is www.diasportsoul.com. And there's information on our retreats, information on how we can support organizations in terms of leadership development, and information specifically about the book itself.
Thank you. And
You're
I want to
welcome.
thank you all for putting questions in the chat. Our conversation was just flowing so much, we didn't get a chance to circle back around to them. I know there was at least one question, and we do apologize for not having time and space to bring that in, but hopefully your soul was fed by what was offered. Phyllis, now we cannot leave the space without you sharing. What did your mama offer you about soul and healing? We talked a little about daddy.
Yeah, I don't know who's asking that question, but I think I might know who asked that question because she asked me that question before. And what my mother and her mother taught me specifically was that blackness is love. Like, we don't gotta be hard. We don't gotta be gangsters. We don't gotta hustle. We don't have to put all this armor on. We can make birthday bags. We can make cookies. We can go for walks in the woods. My mom taught me before my dad could how to be soft and how to be warm and how to be affectionate, how to be loving, for sure. And she also taught me the value of learning all there is to learn. wherever my interest and curiosity takes me. You know, I found her poetry in a container in the garage once. I know she, you know, Dr. Parker talks about her first yoga experience in the early 70s. My mom, she got the pink fuchsia colored yoga book. So she taught me all that I am is okay and can be loved for sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Phyllis's
Mhm.
mom and dad. And then one other question. Someone wanted to know if restorative yoga is the primary modality of yoga to help with healing race-based stress and trauma.
It's the primary yoga modality that I use. And and that comes from studying what Dr. Parker has offered us in her work.
And what's the title of Dr. Parker's book? Maybe that could help the person.
Oh Lord,
Do we have it?
let me get my citation.
It's a
Excuse
test.
me,
It's a
ladies and
test.
gentlemen. You have to look in your bibliography, and we're
Okay.
gonna look a Parker. Hold on. I don't want look. Dr. Parker's looking at me to look at her. Restorative yoga for ethnic and race-based stress and trauma. Singing Dragon is the publisher, and the publication date's 2020. Is that right? I cited it enough. I should know it by heart.
So thank you, Phyllis.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for blessing us with the wisdom that's come through your lived experience that's been birthed as not only diasporic soul, but also we got healed, we got soul, we can heal,
Thank
right?
you.
I can give you a yoga bow and a little 1990s love. Yes. Thank you, BYTA. Thank you, Kalanda, Lorenzo, Dr. Gail. Thank you, everyone at this communal table of BYTA's Books and Brunch, and all the seen and unseen forces that are here. And as we all begin to wrap up our time together and head into winter and continue the holidays, I want us to remember that we can remember to lean into community care. May we remember to lean into community care.
Mhm.
May we feel seen, and may we know those unseen forces that are here with us. May we remember to breathe, and may we all remember that we got soul and we can heal. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Tam.